Called the AI sucker punch. It's going to hit you harder and faster and sooner than you think. You have 8 billionaires that are deciding the future and the fate of 8 billion people on planet Earth. For every dollar that Anthropic or OpenAI spend, what they receive in payment, they're spending $1.20, $1.50 to produce that.
Hello, FinTechers. My name is Igor Tomic, and I'm CEO of Dash Devs, and you're watching a new episode of the FinTech Garden. And I'm really pleased to introduce Jerry Floros, who is an AI speaker, author, and he is the CEO and founder of Human Edge Foundation. And today we're going once again to talk about really interesting topic and trendy one, AI. Hello, Jerry. How are you?
Fine, Igor. Nice to be on your podcast, and looking forward to the difficult questioning that you're going to give us.
We will have some discussions around what is happening right now because the landscape dramatically changed over the last 6 months. Like everything is scaling exponentially. And before we jump, I would like to have your definition, because every time when I'm trying to prepare myself for the episodes, I'm kind of going and trying to take a look on the definitions, and every time it bugs me, because if you go to Wikipedia and you try to define AI, because on the later stages with the complete consciousness on the computers, we can understand it's kind of level reach to the humanity or a human being. But right now, it's not really defined. So what is your definition of AI nowadays? Because if we're going to discuss, it should be the base ground for our discussion.
That's why I said it's a difficult question. I'm currently writing my third book, and it's called The AI Sucker Punch. It's going to hit you harder and faster and sooner than you think. And in that, I talk about what is AI. And the funny part is nobody agrees. From all the experts, from all the AI overlords, the ones that are creating AI, the neural networks, the LLMs and all that, they can't even agree on what is artificial intelligence. So basically, for me, artificial intelligence is when a computer program can imitate human intelligence in a certain way. That's why we have the narrow one. And of course, everybody's looking at AGI, which is the general one. So A and I would be a single task, like, for example, playing chess or AlphaGo. And then general would be AI that could do different things. But even then, it is different because I believe human intelligence has these nuances, this critical thinking, this judgment, this perception of things that AI cannot have, because AI basically has been trained on LLMs that has data scraped off the internet. So you have all the human knowledge and wisdom in the large language models on which the AI is trained on. And now we are running out of data because they've used all the data possible. So now what they're doing is they're strapping on cameras on people's foreheads and on their hands to see how people are actually interacting with other people, doing the work and so on. And now, of course, as you mentioned, they are looking at synthetic data. Somehow now the AI companies are starved for data because they need massive amounts of data to make the LLMs work. But you see like big difference. For example, Anthropic said that 80% of the coding is done using their own AI model, which is fascinating. And it checks for vulnerabilities, for any bugs and so on. It does the work all by itself. But if you use it for other things, like for more like human factors, the AI doesn't have this nuance, these little things to understand concepts that are part of world, which for you and me would be common sense, but the AI doesn't have an example and doesn't know. So it is very difficult to compare the AI, artificial intelligence, with human intelligence. So for me, I think the best way forward is, instead of trying to define what artificial intelligence and what exactly is human intelligence, we need to look at a symbiosis where we use a collaborative version between human intelligence and artificial intelligence and combine it to create something better for us as human beings. And I definitely believe that we should have AI and technology to benefit society and humanity and not the other way around.
Kind of feels a little bit doomed with all the changes, especially with Anthropic models in the engineering area, because right now the things that used to take weeks or months can be generated or achieved much faster. But coming back to AI, like we see the development right now in LLMs. We see the development in models for coding skills. But what other areas you see under the threat of being taken and executed by AI? even though it doesn't reach the level of human intelligence?
Well, that's another thing I looked at. Basically, IQ, the average is 90 to 100 IQ. And then you have 100 and 140, which is genius, the Albert Einsteins and famous people. And then it goes up. There's one Korean guy that has 290 IQ. I've never heard of him, but when I read it, I was surprised. And now the AI models have been tested and they are at 140 and 150 IQ. So with every new model, every new improvement, more efficient models, that IQ number is going to go up. And then it's going to come to the point where we as humans cannot really understand. Because if you take, for example, Stephen Hawking, when he was a physicist, he wrote a book. Most people could understand what he was writing because he sees things from a different perspective. He was a physicist and he could talk about galaxies and parallel universes. And for the average person, we don't know what it is. So what's going to happen? If you have an AI that reaches 200 or 250 or 300, let's not even talk about 1,000 or 1 million, how are we going to be able to understand it? And the other problem is we have the bandwidth. So when you and me communicate, we speak a couple of words, which is about 1 token per word, give and take. So if you and me want to talk 100 words, it'll take some time for you and me to exchange those 100 words. LLMs, AI models, they communicate super fast. That's why when you type in a prompt, you get an answer instantly if it's not too much to be researched. So that is the big bottleneck that you have right now in AI, that the AI needs to grow, but it can't. And if it grows faster, we come to a point where we might not even understand what it is telling, what it is doing. And that's the concerning part, because at the end of the day, you need something to be able to help us. So I'll give another example. I hope that with the AI that we have, which we can use very, very well, is to discover new material, and then maybe we could come closer to nuclear fusion, where we have unlimited energy and solve our energy problems in the data center power supply problem. And we can maybe reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and maybe improve our lives and have less pollution. On the other side, on the medical, we could have maybe, for example, DeepMind, they developed AlphaFold, which is a protein folding, and that can create many new medicines. It can open up a lot of medical research that could lead to breakthroughs, and perhaps we could solve Alzheimer or even found a cure for cancer. So I hope that we are going to use the AI that we have for that specific thing. When I hear Elon Musk talking about going to the moon and to Mars and lunar surface and establish colonies and data centers in the space, we are on planet Earth, my brother. Let's stick to what we want to do in here. So yeah, I think AI should be used for that what we can understand and what we can use to our benefit. That's my view on things.
Thank you for mentioning nuclear fusion, because I was curious about this, and there have been science and experiments going from 60s to achieve the nuclear fusion, because it's much safer if you take a look on the nuclear atomic stations, basically generation of power. And in this case, OpenAI actually invested in nuclear fusion, and they have the first commercial setup, if I'm not mistaken, in Boston University, and it was way before, like a 2-3 years news, that they achieved the net positive effect for the nuclear fusion for the power generation. So I think it even kind of worked backward, because they invested before, because they knew that they will need the energy for those models. And while we've been preparing for this episode, like we defined one of the terms which I really interesting is humane tech. It's finally mainstream. What does it mean for you? Like, what do we have right now? Because we had technology and digital products for more than a decade. Like, everyone is sitting in their mobile devices, but no one was talking about the digital products as something as the other side of human intelligence and something produced by people. So what are you putting into the terms human tech?
The thing that bothers me, and that I write in the book about this, basically you have 8 billionaires that are deciding the future and the fate of 8 billion people on planet Earth. So you have the likes of Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and some other ones that are saying, we need to build data centers, and we need to go to AGI, and we need to go to super intelligence, because if we don't do it, somebody else will do it. First off, in the AI race, there's no finish line. This goes infinity. So, and at the end, at a certain point, it's going to be AI versus AI in the race. It's not going to be even China or America or Anthropic and OpenAI. So we need to get off this crazy track of building these data centers across the world that are going to suck up all the energy and cooling water, and already half of them are stopped. And this crazy race needs to stop. We should take that what we have, focus on that what we can make out of it. And like I said, we could use so many things that would be useful to society and to humanity. DeepMind, which was the original AI from Demis Hassabis, he developed AlphaFold, and he got nominated the Nobel Prize. And the greatest thing, which I found quite amazing, is that he left the model open and he left the research paper. It's open publication, which everybody can access to do their research, the medical and academic scientific research that they want to do. If it would have been somebody else, they would have looked at billions of dollars, because people would have paid billions of dollars to get that data, that AlphaFold data that was made publicly available for free. I'm surprised that he convinced Google to do that, because Google said, hey, we can make some billions in here. Why are you doing this? But he did that in the name of humanity. And all those labs, if you look on the maps across the world, people are using the protein folding data that he generated with his AI models, and that is to the benefit of society. So I say to myself, let's stick down, let's pause it. And even now, all the big tech bosses are saying as well, we need to slow it down. We need to pause it if possible, but we need all to be on the same page. And that's the tricky part, because now there's billions and trillions involved. You probably heard of the 2 trillion SpaceX IPO, which is just mind-boggling by any standard. And so the next one is lined up is Anthropic and OpenAI are looking at $1 trillion IPOs, which is just mind-boggling. They don't even make money. That's the crazy part. So let's come together and work with what we have, because we already have the bottleneck. Number one, there's not enough energy to power the data centers. There is not enough water to cool the systems without affecting the people living around it. And the physical constraints of establishing data centers and robot factories and all that is constraining the whole AI development. So why put all your money and investments into something that is not going to move forward, solve the problems that would make you go forward, for example, the energy supply, and at the same time focus on doing good? Because if you and me find out that there are many new cures, that there's a cure for cancer, that we have nuclear fusion, then people wouldn't hate AI like it is going now, because people have a lot of resentment towards AI. If people would see the benefits, then people would say, hey, AI is good. And that's why I say I'm an AI realist, because I don't want to go for the narrative that AI is going to bring us abundance. I don't believe in that nonsense for nothing, but also don't believe that AI is no good. AI can be used to our benefit, but we just need to make it work for human beings. So we need to go away from the corporate greed to societal benefit.
I'm always trying to take a look on this more from the perspective of the capitalism, because it's kind of self-regulated environment. If someone is paying for the data centers and model usage, it might be the need. And we really see the revolution right now in the software engineering, because let's brush off other industries or the applicability in science, physics, or even chemistry. Right now, the engineering is something which is really transformed by using LLMs. You used to write the code, and there were tools similar to LLMs which are doing the code suggestions, like lookups, even some templates, but an ability to define over functionality, the implementation, it was not before. And it basically gives an ability then for those companies to raise the funds to build those data centers. It's not the direct impact because someone is paying for course subscription, but it kind of, as capitalism works, if there is a demand, people actually having the money to invest and then to build the new stuff. Because let's take a look on example of the space industry. There is no such demand in the regular B2C market, and that's why they don't have so much investments and raising the capital for the private space travels, etc., etc. So, do you think capitalism will cap those data centers, or it's basically the AI bubble powered by the big tech, rounding money once again and kind of building this momentum with no one using data centers?
I'm glad that you asked that, because again, I researched that, and basically Elon Musk, when you add up the numbers, it doesn't make sense whatsoever, because he does incredible things, going to the moon with big rockets and making them land and catch them with a chopstick. Amazing engineering work. So what is he doing? He is getting billions and billions of government money because they want to have space stations and satellites in space so they can spy on each other, and also for future defense. Maybe they have flying lasers out there. I don't know what. So the government, especially the American government, and again, there is another race. The Americans are competing with the Chinese, although the Americans have the lead. They had NASA, which didn't do as good as SpaceX. So he's getting billions that he can invest into doing rocket development, and he's doing quite good. And so eventually you will see rockets going up and landing properly and so on. And that's exactly what he's selling. He's selling hype, to the government and to the investors and hope to the people that, okay, if you invest in my company, you are part of the bigger picture. But basically, AI is not making any kind of money. OpenAI is also not making money. So now you go back to the capitalist. So you have OpenAI, which has 800 million daily users. So they have these people that are using it, and they use it like you and me for simple things. Some people just use it, write me an email. How can I make a cheesecake? Give me the recipe for a cheesecake or whatever. And so you are paying your $20 per month. You use the tokens of these large language models, but you're using up tokens, which is not necessary because you don't need a lab for a cheesecake recipe. You can just look in the cooking book. And so the problem now that they have is the big companies, because they've focused, Anthropic is focused on enterprise business, whereas OpenAI is focused on, how would you say, the average consumer. The average consumer is paying 20 and using AI frivolous things. And of course, there's some people that might be scientists that are using it for deep research and so on and so on. They go to the higher models and the newer models and so on and so on. But Anthropic is focusing on the enterprise level and they're willing to pay money. But they use it so much that they run out of tokens and they run out of usage. So, for example, Uber, they spent the whole budget of 2026 within the first 4 months of this year, and they told everybody, it's enough, we're not going to do this. So what is happening now, as AI is developing faster and faster, and every week just about there's another model coming out. We had Mythos 5 come out, then it was blocked. Now we have, then Fable came out, that was blocked. Then we have Fusion that came out. And every time they bring a faster, better model, but the average person doesn't need a bigger, faster model. You can do it with the simple thing. So that's why they have these different levels. So what's happening now? The billionaires are putting the money in the hope and the hype that they are going to make a fortune back because he has done it before. He had Tesla. When he went IPO with Tesla, Elon Musk, he became the biggest company in the world and he was not even close in production quantities and revenues like the big companies like Fiat, Ford, General Motors, and so on. But he made the most valuable car company in the world. So now everybody thinks, well, he's going to do the same in space, and he probably will. But we're like 5, 10 years out. People are paying now to buy the shares. So what's going to happen, I think, as the protest and the resentment for AI grows and grows, and a lot of people are blocking, sabotaging data centers from being built, the people that are putting their money on the table, when they don't see any kind of return and not even the prospect of a return, there is going to come a credit squeeze. So I believe, without giving any financial advice to nobody, believe that we are going to have an AI bubble, and then we're going to have a bust of the bubble, and that's going to clean out the market from all the small little players, and a lot of people are going to get burned, but the big companies are going to be around. So you won't see Google go under. You won't see SpaceX go under. You won't see most probably Anthropic go under, but there's going to be a big reset. So, and it's already now becoming a big topic in Wall Street. People are talking about it like, is it all worth it? Is it going to work? It's not, because for every dollar that Anthropic or OpenAI spend, what they receive in payment, they're spending $1.20, $1.50 to produce that. So if it costs you more to give somebody that service than you make, numbers don't add up, and eventually you're going to hit a wall, just like any business that doesn't produce any kind of steady revenues and profits. So I see it very tricky right now. And that's why you also see a very big change in how they talk on TV, how they are, because before Sam Altman, depending on who he was talking to, it was a different language. He was talking to investors at Davos. AI was abundance. If you talk to a college, he would say AI will be your future work. If you would talk to his podcast and he was a little bit more emotional or whatever you want to call it, he would say, well, AI is dangerous. It might cause existential risk to us. So depending on who he was talking, but now everybody's coming together and saying, no, wait, we need to slow it down. We need to regulate it, and we need to work together instead of competing together. So you see a distinct difference. And this is only just a couple of days, a couple of weeks now. It's not, and I think, but with each passing day, it's going to get louder and louder that people slow down AI and we try to make it work for everybody.
Basically, we need some kind of global regulation similar to nuclear weapon, because basically it's something which is dangerous. But how do you see this process? Because fairly, the current organizations, global organizations, they cannot handle even the current issues. Not even talking about the AI and potential issues with the digital products and new type of the influence that it can generate. Because Nothing has been managed from the social networks capabilities. Like, let's take a look fairly on the political changes over last 10, 15 years. A lot of things changed due to social media. Like a TikTok was banned temporarily in the United States. There are questions with the tampering with the votes and basically influencing the voting process. Nothing been there. So how do you see it practical view happening with AI? Because then we have the big companies who are interested to not have regulation. So how do you see this part?
Well, if you ask the big tech companies, they want self-regulation. So they say, we don't want government involvement, we'll take care of itself. But years and over the decades, it has always shown that when you leave people to their own devices, companies, there's only one motivation in Wall Street, that's making money, profit. So we need to remove the big players from the decision-making board. They should be included to give their advice and how they view things, but the decision-making should be at the United Nations level. And I'll tell you why. If you take Elon Musk now, recently the stock price even touched $225 from the 135 launch price, which is astronomical. It valued the company at $3 trillion, making Elon Musk, because he only floated 5% of space AI, and he has put down that he owns 80% of the company, so nobody can ever remove him, take him out, whatever. And his personal wealth is 1.5 trillion. I mean, that kind of money, you can buy and sell governments. You can just go to, to the American government right now and say, I'm going to invest 1 billion into your rocket industry, You say yes or no. So the problem is this decision making on a global level needs to be at the government level. And it has happened before when the Russian American Cold War was fully in effect, the East versus West, they sat down and they made an agreement. It was called a MAD agreement, which was a mutual assured destruction. They said, okay, you have 10,000 nuclear arms. We have also 10,000. We can just kill each other and wipe the whole world out. So let's stop the proliferation, meaning building more weapons than we have. We have enough to kill each other over 100 times or 1,000,000 times. And it worked. And then afterwards, we had climate change. We all came together, over 150 countries, and we signed the paper that we will try to reduce carbon emissions, and we signed the Paris Agreement. And we were going in the right direction until a certain president of the United States of America said, we don't need that. We need drill, baby, drill. Just let's drill for oil, and we don't need any alternative energy or renewable energy. We don't need none of that. A handful of people that are deciding the future of the entire planet, which is insane, because a lot of governments, a lot of people, a lot of politicians, they see what the problem is and they say enough is enough. We cannot sit there and drive into a wall or drive out of a cliff. We need to do something now. And you see now that momentum going, and you see now in America, there's a lot of things going on. In my mind, absolutely crazy things that is going on. But you see that the grassroots movement is there. A lot of people are protesting and blocking data centers, and a lot of politicians are trying to stop the government of America, which I would say the regime that's running America, because it's not a normal government. And they are doing all that they can to slow things down. And you see in Europe, they're already distancing themselves from tech dependence of the American companies, because they just recently blocked MiFID. They said any foreigner, even in America, is not allowed to access MiFID because of national security danger. And the Europeans didn't think it was funny. So they kicked out Google, they kicked out Palantir, they kicked out all the companies. And now they're looking at sovereign AI. So they're looking at sovereign AI for the European continent, the 27 countries in the European Union. Even the UK is, Japan, Singapore, all these countries are now looking at sovereign AI to have their own tech stack, and have their own AI models and their own LLMs. And like that, they reduce the dependency of the Americans. And what does it do? It hurts the Americans in the pockets, because if the companies don't make the money like they're making now, it's going to backfire. And then they're going to remove the regime by themselves. They're going to say, we don't want you anymore because you're bad for business. And that's where we're at right now. And this is happening on a daily basis. I'm reading about it, and I'm surprised how fast they are going and say, we're not going to use any American software or tech or anything like that. So you see that people are doing something about it, and it's going faster and faster. And I hope that one day we can all come together and say, okay, we need to do the same thing like we did with nuclear arms. We need to have some kind of framework where we're all on the same page, a level playing field, that we all have the same rules and regulations, and that people are responsible for the models that they produce, that you cannot just put a model out there and see how it goes. You have to test it in safe laboratory conditions and see how the model works, and then releases, which is what Anthropic basically did with Mythos, and then realized it was too powerful. It could jailbreak, it could discover vulnerabilities, and it was the best cyber attack machine that was ever developed. So they stopped it, and then they changed and put the guardrails in there and the safety blocks to stop it from doing things that it's not supposed to do. So we don't need to play with fire. Fire is nice. If you put it in open fire, you have nice heat, but you can burn yourself. So let's enjoy the heat without getting burned. That's how I look at it.
Thank you for sharing that. And maybe the last question for today that I didn't ask, but you still want to answer for our audience.
I think that the biggest problem, apart from this AI race, the job displacement, the data center build out, this reckless pursuit of AI development and deployment is going to backfire. And what do I mean with that? Once you start having students that graduate spending 4 years or longer to get a degree in education, indebting themselves in the process, because not everybody comes from a rich family, and then you come out and you don't have a job lined up. There's no internships, nothing. They are firing people like it is. 142,000 people got lost their jobs in the tech world in the past year. And so you will see that people come out and they become disillusioned, they become desperate, and they become even depressed. And so I think the mental well-being is something that is more important that we need to deal with right now, because that is something that once it goes wrong, it can go horribly wrong, because depression can lead to suicidal thoughts or self-harm. It can lead to loneliness. We're already facing a lot of depression, partly because of social media, because you are presented a perfect world and we're not living in a perfect world and we're not perfect human beings. So for me, the biggest thing, and this is what I write in my book also, emotional well-being, the mental well-being of youngsters and people in general is going to be more important than ever, because there is nothing worse than having no purpose in life, no meaning. Like you come out of school and there's no job, and they tell you, you get UBI to sit at home and watch Netflix or PlayStation, or, this is not the kind of life that you want to present to your children. And I say to myself, I have 2 children. I want them to have a better life than I do. And every parent wants pretty much the same. So I ask everybody, even when I go to the parliament, I say, what kind of future are we going to give our children? And then people are perplexed because nobody can really answer that question. So we need to focus on that we have a system which gives youngsters an opportunity to pursue their dreams and their careers and have meaning and purpose in life. That for me is very, very important. So we need to work on that. So maybe we can work together on that one, Igor. I think that would be a good thing to have.
That's why we're here. We're educating people and highlighting what is really important from real experience, because it's quite easy to catch up the marketing buzz and like copy paste the narratives, but having the personal opinion and proper understanding of the things is really important. Thank you for sharing with us this episode today. It was a pleasure to discuss, and thank you for everyone listening till then. We're looking forward to you to join the next episode of the FinTech Garden.